Is this going live stream to Buckingham Palace?
It is. It is.
I have friends there, okay?
And it's awesome. Two tiny ladies. It was the
If you make an announcement, maybe you'll let them will come and sit down, isn't it? But if you make an announcement for everyone to come and sit, maybe they will come and sit.
I don't know, will they hear me?
Yeah, they will,
They will?
because you have the mic, isn't it?
Yes, testing, 1, 2, 3. So we'll be starting the afternoon session at 1 p.m. We'll be starting the session at 1 p.m. Yeah.
I think you can start.
Yeah. So part of my duty this afternoon is to make sure you don't fall asleep after lunch. Because it's very easy to be sleepy. So I have to make sure you don't sleep. And no snoring allowed. No snoring allowed. So of course, in your sleepy state after lunch, the last thing you need is a long Dharma talk. They'll be snoring for sure. So just make sure that you don't fall asleep. We may stand. And some of you may remember 2 months ago, we did some Qigong movements. And as I mentioned before, Qigong is a form of mindfulness, but it is moving mindfulness or dynamic sati. Just like walking, mindful walking is a form of moving mindfulness. And the reason why I do the Qigong wherever I go is because it's an effective way of dealing with stress and emotional stress. Because you cannot avoid stress these days. It's everywhere. And of course, emotional stress includes any kind of upset, frustration, anxiety, and depression. Okay? And the one good thing is that the video is on YouTube. You can watch the video. So afterwards, I'll give you the link so you can go to the video and watch it anytime. And the movements are very simple. So the first movement, place your hands in front, left or right, doesn't matter. Okay? And we start by breathing out. Breathing out. Then breathing in, down and up. Nice deep breath. And out again. Up. Breathe in. Breathe out. In. Out. Okay. Now breathing in, palms up slowly. Breathe out, palms down. Breathe in. Breathe out. So move according to the length of your breath, okay? So just experiment and see the length of your breath, and you move accordingly. So you're aware of in-breath as you go up, out-breath as you come down. Okay, now the next one, just bend your knees a little bit, and we're going to move from side to side, breathing in, breathing out. And pretend you're a candy dancer, okay? Again, breathing in, breathing out. Okay. Now the next one, arms out, palms down. And breathing in. And then breathing out, slowly bending. About halfway. Palms up, breathe in slowly. Breathe out. In, out. Now from here, breathe in, open. And as you go, you smile, okay? Don't be shy, don't be shy. I like to hear everyone, okay? So you breathe in and then you go, like a release. That's very good for upset and frustration, okay? Breathing in, Don't be shy. One more time. When you go home, you can practice this. And you can make as much noise as you want at home, okay? Breathing in, breathing out. And again, you're aware of in-breath going up, out-breath coming down. Okay, the next one is for the shoulders. Breathing in, bring your shoulders up as high as you can and relax. Okay, and we go back to breathing in, breathing out. This is called balancing chi, balancing the energy. This becomes like our center of focus and calmness. rub your palms together. Now fingers together, breathe in, stretch. Okay, and just one more time, down, breathe in. Ah. 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 One more time. Okay, we may sit. No, not yet. So the next time you're feeling any kind of stress, upset, frustration, anxiety, you can do these movements. They're very simple. And as I said, they're on video. I'll give you the link afterwards. Yeah. And you can do this sitting down also. Say if you're at work and you're feeling stress, upset, irritation, with your co-worker or with your boss, supervisor. This happens at work all the time. You can do this. Because you find that when you breathe and move at the same time, it's an easy way to focus the mind, especially when you're in a busy environment. Because when it's busy, it's very difficult to do anapanasati, right? Mindful breathing. But this you can do. And when I meet medical people, I show them these movements. Because, in hospitals, things can get pretty busy and crazy. And sometimes doctors and nurses, they lose focus sometimes because they're so busy. And sometimes they make mistakes because they're human. Because as human beings, we're not perfect. So the other practice, I showed you before, but maybe some of you were not here the last time, and it's also a form of dynamic sati, moving the hands. You place your palms on your knees. Yeah. I know some of you can't see me from there. Okay. If you're right-handed, you start with your right hand. If you're left-handed, you start with your left hand. Okay? Yeah. Actually, I wish I could move closer, but the cameraman said I have to sit here. Okay? Okay. Is here okay? So palms on your knees. Okay. So I'm right-handed, so I'll start with my right. And if you're left-handed, you start with your left. Okay. So the right or left palm goes up on the edge like this. Like this. Okay? Like this. Very simple. And then lifting slowly, then slowly to the stomach. And you're aware of your hand touching the stomach. Body. Not body guinea. And the left or right palm on the edge like this, the other one up. Lifting slowly to the stomach. And you're aware of your hand touching the other hand, right? And keep your hands very relaxed, very loose. So then very easily your right or left hand goes up to the chest, very easily. And of course you're aware of your hand touching the chest area, okay? Then out, down on the knee, touching the knee, then palm down, okay? Other hand up, touching, out, down, and down. Again, right or left palm up, lifting. Body. Other hand. Body. Up to the chest, okay? Out, down, and down. Other hand touching, out, left, and down. Then right or left. And if you're doing this practice at home, you can play any music or chanting that you find very relaxing and very calming. And you find this is very good when you find yourself thinking too much. You know, like worrying, you're obsessing about something, or you're having regrets, and you're feeling guilty. You can just focus on the hand movements, and you let go of those thoughts, those unnecessary thoughts that are creating dukkha, mental, emotional upset. Okay, and we just finish again with the sitting one, breathing in, breathing out. Okay. We can sit here.
Yeah. There's another talk at 2 o'clock about that.
Yes. So I'll finish at 2, yes. Now we often hear or read that the cause of dukkha, the cause of mental, emotional suffering and conflict and confusion is craving. But I think it's more than just craving, you know, always wanting something or having expectations. It's really clinging also, clinging. And as human beings, we are brought up to cling to things. That is, to identify with things as me or mine. Whether it's the physical body, whether it's emotions, feelings and emotions, and of course thoughts or mental objects. You know, my thoughts, my ideas, my views and opinions, my beliefs and so on. And of course we cling to the body. This is me, this is mine. And of course we cling to other people. You know, my family, my friends, my relatives and so on. And emotions arise, and we identify with those emotions because it is a part of our social conditioning, upbringing. You know, a happy feeling arises, we say, I am happy. It seems perfectly normal. unhappy feeling arises, we say, I am unhappy, or I'm sad, or I'm upset, I'm bored, I'm lonely, I'm frustrated, I'm afraid, and so on. Now, what the Dhamma is showing us is that these things that we identify with as me or mine, that we take very personally, they don't really belong to us. Feelings and emotions do not really belong to us. They're a part of the body-mind process, rupa and nama. Nama and rupa. And they arise due to certain conditions. Same with our thoughts, ideas, concepts, beliefs, what we call mental objects. They don't really belong to us. Thoughts do not belong to us. Again, it's a part of nama rupa, part of the process. But the way we're educated, we cling very strongly to our thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and so on. We identify with them. And because we identify so strongly with our thoughts, with our mental objects, mental formations, we become deluded by them. And this is what we call neurosis, when we're deluded by thoughts. And every time the mind says I, we think this I is who we are, right? But the great wisdom of mindfulness, of sati, that the Buddha realized is that this I is not really who we are. But we use the I or the equivalent, like in Sinhala, use mama in Sinhala. It's really just a label, a social label that we use to communicate. And of course, as human beings, we need language to communicate. But because we're using the same label to communicate, I or mama, it gives the impression that this I, this mama, is permanent. Simply because we're using the same label all the time. It gives that impression. But only with the wisdom of mindfulness, present moment awareness, we can see that it's just a label that we use. And it's not permanent. And when we're very mindful, and the mind is thinking, I so-and-so, I this, I that, you see that this I is really just a thought. It's just thinking. That is the great wisdom of sati, mindfulness. And of course we identify with the body. This is me, this is mine. And every time we look in the mirror and we see the image in the mirror, we think that image is who we are. And half the time we're not pleased with that image. And there are sometimes you look in the mirror and you say, oh, today I'm not looking so bad, not too bad. I'll never be a beauty queen or a fashion model, but today I'm okay. But then 2 days later, you look in the mirror, ayo, what happened? I look so awful, so terrible. I need makeup, or more makeup, or a new kind of makeup. And in some countries, they want to have cosmetic surgery. In some countries, they're very obsessed about, changing this, changing that, as soon as they can afford it. But what the Dhamma is teaching us is that image that you see in the mirror is not who you really are. And it's constantly changing. Of course, it's constantly changing. And you'll notice that if you look at your photographs, all your photos, you can see the aging process, don't you? But somehow you feel the same. Despite, the aging process, somehow we feel the same. And what that is teaching us is that who we are is not the aging body. But who we really are is the awareness, sati, the present moment sati. That is the wisdom of sati. And this is something the Buddha realized. And when the Buddha investigated his own body, he began to see the truth of anatta, no permanent self. For example, if we tell the body not to get sick, the body does not listen to us, right? The body will get sick due to certain conditions. Just like if you tell the body not to get tired, not to get sleepy, not to get hungry, not to go to the washroom, not to age, and so on, you see that the body does these things because it follows its own natural laws. It is anatta, not self. So in other words, this physical body really belongs to nature, the changing conditions of nature, and is composed of the 6 elements: earth, water, heat, air, space, and consciousness. Unfortunately, I don't have time this afternoon to go into the elements, but it's a very profound reflection. But I have a talk on video. I can give you the link and you can watch it at any time. It's a very profound Dhamma. Because initially when we hear that we're composed of elements, it's just an idea. But when you go through the body and you see what parts of the body are related to certain elements, then the truth of the elements becomes very clear. And you realize we exist because of elements, of these elements. It's a very profound teaching of these elements. And if you really want to know what continues after death, it's the elements. They go back to nature. They go back to nature. And the first element to leave the body is the heat element, or sometimes it's referred to as the fire element. That's the first element to leave the body. And this is why if you touch a dead body, what you notice, it feels cold. Anybody who has touched a dead body, that's what you notice. It feels cold. Because once Nama Rupa, Rupa Nama stops working, it shuts down, then there's no more heat element. Because it's this process of Nama Rupa, Rupa Nama that creates the heat. Just like when we did the Qigong movements, you notice we began to feel warm, right? Because we're in this process of constant change. And that is the truth of anicca, of impermanence. Simply because we're in this process of constant change. Whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. So, the wisdom of sati, we stop identifying with the body and we stop identifying with feelings and emotions. For example, instead of saying I'm upset, or I'm frustrated, or I'm afraid, you breathe mindfully and you say, there is a state of upset. There is a state of frustration. There's a state of fear. You see the difference? You're seeing it as it is. You're seeing it objectively. You're not identifying with it as mine. You know, my upset, my frustration, my fear. So that is one of the causes of dukkha. When we identify with feelings and emotions, we hold on to them as something personal, including my happiness, my unhappiness, my fear, my frustration, and so on. So this is the freedom of sati. It gives us the ability to see things as they are. And then we say, this is anicca. It is impermanent. It's only a temporary state of mind. a changing condition of mind. It is anicca. That is the wisdom of the Dhamma. And likewise, when our minds are caught up in many stories and many dramas, and sometimes you're saying, you know, this might happen, or that might happen, and this might happen, and that might happen, you're creating a dukkha in the mind. Because that's the nature of the mind, to be creating all these stories and many dramas, worries, fears, and so on. So a very useful practice is to note it. Just say to yourself, it is only thinking, thinking, thinking. Huh? It's only thinking, thinking, thinking. And you come back to mindfulness of breathing, or you can do the hand movements if you like. Because when you do that, only thinking, 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 it helps you to get out of the story, or the mini drama, or the worry, or the fear. It's a very beneficial practice. Because if we don't have sati, we become deluded. We become deluded by these stories and mini dramas and figures. Because we think what the mind is creating is very real, but actually it's not. It only seems real because of the emotions that arise. Likewise, when we have unpleasant memories, and we all have unpleasant memories. Of course, we have pleasant memories, we have unpleasant memories. But unpleasant memories are a source of delusion, of moha and dukkha. Why? Because they can still create emotions. Right? When you remember something, some unpleasant memory, you can still get very upset, right? You can still, even after a long time, or you can still have regret or feeling guilty about something. And because they create emotions, those unpleasant memories, they seem real, they seem permanent because of the emotions. But with the wisdom of sati, with mindfulness, again, we realize that they're only thoughts and images that are happening now in the present moment. They're only happening in the present moment, only thoughts and images. And it is very liberating when we realize this. Now, those thoughts and images might be related to, a past experience that was not pleasant, but the actual experience of the unpleasant memory are just thoughts and images that are happening now in the present. And that is the wisdom of sati. Only thinking, thinking, thinking. Very useful technique. Only thinking, thinking, thinking. And you come back to present moment, awareness. Hand movements, anapanasati, or you can do the simple qigong. And again, even those thoughts and emotions, they are anicca. They're only temporary mental states, mental object, changing condition of the mind. I'll just relate a very quick story to you. Once I was at the Sri Lankan temple in Christchurch, New Zealand, and they had just recovered from the earthquake. 2 years before, they had 2 earthquakes in New Zealand, and you could still see the damages. And the Sri Lankan temple, they had to close. The building was okay, but outside the roads were badly damaged. So they had to close the temple. So 2 years later, I'm in New Zealand, and I was staying at the new location, the new Sri Lankan temple. And I was doing a 1-day program of mindfulness study. And there was a lady there Sri Lankan, of course, and she was very, very unhappy. And she told all her friends why she was so unhappy. And one of her friends related to me the story why this lady was so unhappy. And of course, she was sitting there too. She had a son and daughter. And the son, he's about 26, 27. He moved out of the house and he was living with his girlfriend, and he refused to visit his mother. That was the source of her unhappiness. You see, the father had died very early. He had a heart attack at a very young age, and she was left with, young children, the daughter and the son. It was very difficult for her. You can imagine being so far away from Sri Lanka and all her family and relatives and support. It was very challenging for her. And she made a mistake, feeling sorry for the son, because he didn't have his father. She spoiled him rotten. And when you spoil a child rotten, he grows up to be a very immature, self-centered adult. And that's what happened to the son. Very self-centered, very demanding, very immature. Fortunately, her daughter was very different. She was living with her mother, very supportive, very kind, and so on. And of course, the son living with his girlfriend, and he refused to visit his mother. And apparently the son, his girlfriend, is very insecure and very jealous, very controlling. So I said to the lady, you cannot depend on your son for your happiness. You just cannot. Fortunately, you have a very kind, caring daughter. You just have to be patient, and hopefully one day he'll become more mature, more responsibility, and maybe he'll come and see you. But at this moment, you cannot depend on him. You just have to let him be, because you're also responsible for him being that way. Immature, selfish, and so on. I said to her, when you practice mindfulness, sati, as taught by the Buddha, you begin to realize the real suffering is really not your son, but it is your obsessive thoughts and craving about your son. It's in the mind. This is the teaching of sati. And she had never heard this type of teaching before. You have to look at your mind. That is where the dukkha is coming from. Your obsessive thoughts and the strong craving about your son. Now, after we had the discussion, we were outside. It was a very beautiful day, beautiful tree, and we did some of these qigong movements, including, the one, releasing frustration, upset. And would you believe, she completely changed. And everyone saw the difference in her, because she was so unhappy, so obsessive. But by doing the qigong, the movements, she was able to let go of those obsessive and craving mind. And everyone could see the difference. Okay, we just have a few minutes left. I'll give you the links afterwards, and we'll finish with the mindful chanting. You may recall in Sanskrit, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parasam, Gate, Bodhisvaha. And it means going beyond, well beyond the world of dukkha, lobha, dosa, moha, going beyond the illusion of duality and separation. And Bodhisvaha means rejoice in the freedom, bliss, and peace of awakening. Okay, so you can join me. You pick it up in 30 seconds. And it has a nice rhythm to it. So the words words again are Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parasam, Gate, Bodhisvaha. It's in Sanskrit. Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parasam, Gate, Bodhisvaha. 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 So if you're having any disturbing thoughts, if you do this chanting, those disturbing thoughts and feelings will go away. So I leave the links here with Lakshman, and you can take a photo of the links. So may you all be well, peaceful, and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
चक्रवडंकित रत्न सुपादो लखन मंडित आयत पानी चामर छत्र विभूषित पादो ऐसा ही तुई है पिता नारसिंह सक्के कुमार वारो सुखुमालो लखन विथत पुण्य शरीरो लोकहिताय गातो नारवीरो ऐसा ही तुई है पिता नारसिंह पुण्य सशंख निभो मुख वन्नो देव नारायण पियो नार नागो मत्त गजिन विलासित गामी ईसहितुई है पिता नारसी हो खत्तिय संभव अंग कुलीनो देव
Good afternoon. To start with, when you read a scientific paper, they always give what is called an abstract. Now, what Buddha said that the Dhammacakka Sutra, I think must have been quite long, and what now we see as the sutra is the abstract. Apart from what happened after he said, how the gods and other people behave. So it's a very short abstract that was given. And in this, the Four Noble Truths he explained. The first truth is the suffering or dukkha, which is translated very badly as suffering. It's not suffering, it is the unsatisfactory nature of life. Or in short, when you are born, as soon as you are born, you are an accident waiting to happen. You don't know what will happen at any time. Recently, I don't know whether you have read this book called The Sapiens by a young professor from Israel called Harari. And this book has been translated to about 50-60 languages and is very famous. And he now goes around the world giving lectures about what will happen to the humankind in the future. And always he starts this lecture, although he is from faith of Judaism, he says, as soon as you are born, you start suffering, which is true. And Buddha himself described suffering in five conditions. What he said is, Jatipi dukkha, Jarapi dukkha, Vyadipi dukkho, Maranampi dukkam, Apiyehi sampayogo dukkho, Priyehi vipayogo dukkho, Yam picchan nalabati dukkam. And the last one is Sankittena pancha upadana kanda dukkha. First one is to be born means it's a very unsatisfactory thing to be born. And then when you grow old, it's very unsatisfactory. And in between you can fall ill, again unsatisfactory. Then you die, which is unsatisfactory. Then what happened? Appiyehi sampayogo dukkho. Supposing you die and you get born into some place where the parents are neglecting you as a child and even torturing you. That is, you are meeting unpleasant people. Appiyehi sampayogo. To be sort of association with unpleasant is suffering. So it is not only the suffering nowadays, like having a bad boss, bad partner, or bad relations or neighbors. That's also suffering. But worse suffering is once you are born, when you die and are reborn, you might be reborn into a place where there is unpleasant people. Similarly, piyehi vipayogo dukkho. Separation from pleasant things and people is also suffering. So what happens? You love your family, grandchildren, children, and when you die, you get separated. And in the meantime, between birth and death, you meet lots of people, they die. I have counted recently 147 people, relations and friends have died during my life. My single life. And that's a lot. If you count, that's a lot. So that is suffering. Separation from present is suffering. And then other thing is yam picchan nalabati dukkha. You wish for a lot of things. When you don't get, you suffer. And the last one explains everything. Sankittena, concisely, the 5 aggregates. We are described as 5 aggregates. We have a body, we have feelings, we identify people, perception, and then we start thinking about these things. Those are the mental formations. And then we are aware of what is happening. Vijnana, consciousness. Those are the 5 aggregates. So to be born with 5 aggregates is suffering, unsatisfactory. And then later on, when once Buddha was giving a sermon, he started getting a backache. He called his chief disciple Sariputta, keep on the teaching, and he went and lay down and listened to it. And then Sariputta added 8 more things to this 5. 5 things completely describes everything. Everything in life that happens. But then in between, during life, what you experience, Sariputta described, and Buddha also has described in a separate sutra. And that is called Soka, Parideva, Dukkha Domanassa Upayasa. Soka means sad, sorrow. Soka, Parideva. Then you start lamenting. In these countries, people don't lament too much. Even if they lament, they hide it. But in our country, in the East, they do all sorts of things, lament loud, and it is also shown on the television. When somebody dies, they start crying, shouting, hurting others, and fainting. That is lamenting. And then dukkha, soka, parideva, dukkha. Then they feel bodily pain. They feel bodily pain. In fact, with a very big shock, you can even get a heart attack and die. Recently they have found what's called Taksubo syndrome, in which people who had very sort of shocking experiences develop cardiac failure. And now it is recognized. So don't get worried, because now the doctors know that if you had a shock and you came with heart failure to hospital, then this is the condition, and most people are sort of cured from it. Very few die now. But in the olden days, in the scriptures, in the literature, they said that so and so died, and his wife died of split heart or broken heart immediately after. That was this syndrome. So that is the physical part of the thing. Dukkha, then domanassa. Then you become sort of, you can't recover from this incident, and you keep on being sad and depressed, and you cannot sort of get out of that mood. That is domanassa. Then you get upayasa. Upayasa means tiredness, and you become almost an ill patient. Physically you become ill if you keep on doing it. That is because we can't, whatever we do and think, when things happen, it's very difficult to get over this. In fact, about 2000, something like 400 years later, a psychologist called Dr. Sale described these 5 symptoms as what is called the general adaptation syndrome. And he gives 3 stages. He gives alarm, and then adaptation, and then the suffering, what happens later, recovery period. And it's almost similar. In fact, I think it's late Bhante, famous Bhante Punnaji, Madhawala Punnaji, I don't know whether you have heard of him. he's the one who compared these two and said, this adaptation syndrome is the Soka Parideva Dukkha Domanas Upayasa described by Buddha and Sariputta. So these are the bad things about this dukkha. And what happens is this dukkha is so much sort of described in details. People say that Buddhism is a pessimistic religion. They talk only about sorrow, suffering, and nothing else. No, Buddha has described about happiness also. People can be happy in between. There are short sort of intervals of happiness. And so when you sort of become happy, and if you sort of expect that happiness to last forever, that is where the suffering comes. So if you say you are happy and very sort of comfortable in your body yourself, you should enjoy that, knowing that it is in the present. And if they do not last, then you should not become unhappy about it. In fact, they say if you fall ill, you suffer twice. First from the illness, the bodily pain, and then you suffer from in your mind, from the mental pain. This is what Buddha tried to explain. Don't sort of expect things to last forever, and therefore enjoy whatever is there during the present period. When you are happy, enjoy. And when you are unhappy, you know that even that is not going to last. So don't be unhappy too much. Whatever it is, he said, this whole life is total. If you take the sum total, it is unsatisfactory. And if we understand that and live life according to that understanding, death is common, birth is common. Now even, for example, now for a child when he's born, I don't know how many people have been there when children are born. First thing is, what they do? They cry. And if they don't cry, you slap them and make them cry. That is suffering. You know why? Because before you are born, your lungs are not working. Your blood is not going into the lungs. And as soon as you are born and the air strikes you, there is a twisting of some of the arteries inside your chest. And the arteries open into the lungs. And then you are cut off from the placenta which was giving oxygen. And if you don't get oxygen within the next 4 minutes, you are dead. So you cry and take the first breath. And what happens? You keep on breathing till you die. So is that satisfactory? No. There is no way that we can stop breathing. So as soon as we are born, Professor Harari is right, you suffer. And then from the inside, very warm, comfortable womb in the mother, you come out to the cold. And that itself is suffering. And when you open the eyes, the lights, and they say when the light first falls on the retina, it gives so much pain. It's very painful till they get adjusted. Children, little babies, and when they are born, they can't recognize anything. What they feel is there is a light coming and it's very painful. It takes time for things to settle down and for babies to become adjusted to light. And they feel that now they are in a very uncomfortable surrounding. And when your mother hugs and starts feeding them, and that is the comfort they have. So birth itself is suffering. And then jarapi dukkha, aging is suffering. is this common thing. I mean, you don't have to, I don't have to describe that aging is suffering, because I am suffering now. I wish I was 20 years back, but there are a lot of things that I can't do. Run and play football and things like that. That's suffering. Then, we are the illness, I told you. You suffer illness, and also you suffer mental pain because of the illness. Then, what next one is marana. That, of course, they say that at death you suffer because your senses stop working. Your hearing goes, your sight goes slowly, and you feel cold. You can't feel in your body itself. And they say that these things take even in sudden deaths. There is pain of death. And then, if you are sort of conscious, you know that you are going to leave everything behind. That is suffering. Then I explained the associate separation from pleasant, not to get one wanted, and association with unpleasant. And then the 5 aggregates that we walk about and run and do things itself is suffering. Now, this has been very well sort of described in 3 headings by Buddha. And that is what are called the dukkhata, the states of the 3 states of suffering. One is dukkha dukkhata, the bodily suffering. You get headaches, you get tummy pains, you fall and get sort of broken legs, and thus bodily pain is suffering. That is one group. The second group is suffering due to change. Suffering due to change, because our bodies are changing, our minds are changing, everything is changing. You are very happy at one moment, and then suddenly somebody says, links up and says, so and so died. Then the happiness is gone. So your mind has changed. That is suffering. And also, in your mind itself, even without somebody saying anything, you are very happy one moment, and then suddenly the happiness goes, and you find that it's neutral. Or when you are doing something, you are neither happy nor unhappy. So it is all changing. That is the second type of. The third one is called the suffering of the substances that we are made of, sanskara dukkha. We think we have got bones, flesh, nice skin, with lot of things applied to make it more better looking, and hair and all these things. But at the end, they are made of what? Molecules, cells. They are made of what are called cells, cytoplasm, molecules, and molecules are made of atoms. Atoms are made of subatomic particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, and things like that. And they are made of quantum particles called quarks, and they are made of further down the way, sort of very fine particles. And at the end, when you are trying to look for particles, they are waves. There is nothing. Sunyata. So actually we are made of nothing. There is a lot of space inside us. 80% of us is made of water. And all our, even the things that we feel as solid, it's in a watery medium, cells. And these cells are all the time working like a factory, trying to survive. If you don't get oxygen for 4 minutes, that's the end of it. And if you have too much of acid in your surrounding water, that's the end of it. So we don't know what can happen anytime. We learn very badly that the virus we can't even see can cause problems. So what we are made of itself is an accident waiting to happen, as I said before. This is what is all about this dukkha, what he described. And then this, as the current philosophers are now coming to sort of realize it is. That's why I told you about Professor Harari. Then we have another, what you call Thomas Metzinger, a German philosopher. He's currently a professor somewhere in Germany. And he said because of this suffering, what can be done about future? How is mankind going to evolve in the future? What he says is, it is wrong to look for freedom from death, permanent life, going back to young age. He says that's not leading to any sort of progress. What will be the best way for the man to evolve in the future is to become tired of this suffering body and mind. And then, if you can evolve so much and get rid of the body and the mind, then there is no suffering, no death, no birth, nothing. What did he say? He was saying what Buddha said 2,500 years ago, last week in Germany. So, for us to evolve, is that what we are doing now? What we are doing is to evolve our intelligence, to get rid of this suffering body and the changing mind, and then we will be free of suffering. So, this is what Buddha was trying to say at the sort of, call them the deer park in Isipatana. On a day like this, after he became Buddha and walked something like 140 kilometers to meet the 5 priests and explained in detail. So what we are reading in the discourse is the abstract of the sermon he gave. And he sort of described the whole concept of suffering completely in these 5 conditions and 8 sub-conditions. The 5 conditions is for the whole life. Now the 8 other conditions is day-to-day activities, what you experience. So you experience suffering. And he further went to illustrate that by giving what he called the dependent origination, paticca-samuppada. And in that paticca-samuppada, the last step is what I said about this soka parideva dukkha domanassa upayasa. That is how what we experience in life. If you get something bad, that is what happens. When you get something, when you hear something good, we laugh with joy and dance and sort of experience it. But don't expect that experience to go on. It will end. And you will have either neutral experience or unpleasant experience. When that happens, you should not start doing lamenting, feeling sad, lamenting, bodily pain, all those things. That is what Buddha is saying. He says things are not permanent, therefore enjoy what you can when you have time. Accept it. And try to get out of this continuing experience which is bound to happen again and again and again. Although some people say, no, this is the end of it. Brain is the product of the activity of the consciousness. Mind is the product of the activity of the brain. and when your body dies, the mind dies. And Buddha said, no, it doesn't. There is what is called enough anecdotal, what the scientists call anecdotal evidence that life continues, which has been studied for the last 50 years in America, and all recorded, proved. Only thing is, you can't experiment it. Therefore, the scientists are like the ostriches. You know what ostrich does when you chase it? It goes and hides its head in the sand and thinks that the enemies have gone off. So the scientists are doing that. I am connected to science, but I have to accept that. What we are doing is we are hiding our head in the sand and saying, no, that's the end of the life. Death is the end of life, that's nothing more. On the other hand, in the olden days, the religion started by saying there is something permanent inside us, like the chief executive officer, directing everything, listening to everything, recording it, and then when a body dies, it goes away and either joins the God or joins the universal consciousness or something like that. And now even the scientists have accepted there is nothing, no chief executive officer in our mind. Actually, this was described by a chap called, I think, James or somebody, a philosopher last century in America. He said, mind is not soul, it is a pulsating series of units, moments of consciousness that keeps on changing. And the modern psychology book says, he's the first discoverer of that mind is not a permanent soul. Forgetting Buddha who said that 2,600 years ago. So many things that Buddha said has now been accepted. So the message of Buddha on a day like today to the 5 priests was that there are 4 truths. In the morning you must have heard from Bhante Bandula everything. Suffering, the reason for suffering, and there is hope. You can end suffering. And then he said, this is the way to end the suffering, the path. So if there is no hope, then he wouldn't have come and said anything. He would have said, I have failed in my sort of 6 years of exploration and trouble, and I haven't reached a solution to the suffering. But he said, I have. And I can't give false promises that the chief executive officer inside me will fly away and join in the big chief universal soul or the God. And only way to stop suffering is to realize that we are 5 aggregates of suffering from the time we are born, as Professor Harari says, until we die. And the only way is to find a solution is to evolve our mind by following the path. You know, it is divided into 3 sections. Sila, virtue, not doing any harm to anyone, and doing good, that is Sila, virtue. And then Samadhi, try to tame your mind. Mind is running all over. Suddenly you are listening to this and say, today there is no tube service from Earl's Court onwards. How am I going to get away? And then suddenly you realize you have been listening to a talk and then come back. So like that, mind is running all over. Samadhi is try to bring the mind to quieten down and be tranquil and be happy, whatever you are, wherever you are. And then Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and then think about what he called the 3 universal characters in life. That everything is impermanent, and because everything is impermanent, it causes unsatisfactory state. And then there is what he called but there is no chief executive officer inside us. By doing what he called the Vipassana meditation, insight meditation. Insight meditation is you quieten the mind first, and then everything that comes to your mind, you analyze and watch without getting involved. And suddenly the thought came, tube service disrupted. And then you find, oh, I was meditating. Now see, now that thought came and it disappeared. So it itself is impermanent. And it was in my mind. And the mind is made of what you call consciousness and mental factors or whatever it is. There is no chief executive officer thinking about the tube inside me. And because of all these things, and it is a very unsatisfactory nature, so we must try to get out of this unsatisfactory nature and be free from suffering. I think I have been talking for a long time. It's time for you to talk before you fall asleep. Any questions you want to ask about dukkha or anything in particular? If I am able, I'll answer.
Are there any records that actually how long it lasted, the Dhammacakka Sutta?
No record. What they say is that it started in the night and went on till morning. But the thing is, most of the discourse is what happened after the discourse. How the message went round. Itself is a revelation of how the universe is. It says that there are other living beings who we can't see, who are listening to this, and then they sent this message to other living beings in other planets. And it says these other planets were informed and became enlightened. They describe as 1,000 world systems. And then they say from there it spread to another 10,000 world systems. Like that, and then the 10,000, 100,000 world system. It is described in the Sutta. What they say is there was a huge uproar in all these world systems that Buddha has described the suffering. So this universe was not unknown to ancient Buddhism. If there are so many discourses where in one he says everything is impermanent, including the world systems. They say this world system will get destroyed one day. And before it is destroyed, one can see 2 suns, 3 suns, 4 suns coming up on the sky. This is what the scientists say now, that when the things contract, before it is sort of pulled into what you call a black hole, all the stars are come together. And they say the whole thing will dry up and catch fire and explode. It's all explained in that. Only thing is Buddha was very unwilling to explain these things, because at that time people believed the world was a flat disk with a central mountain called Mahameru. Most probably they must have thought about the Everest. They must have seen the Everest, and people coming from 4 sides of the Everest for trade. They said there are 4 continents surrounded by sea. This was even in the Hindu system also the same description of universe. So if Buddha was trying to say so many world systems, no, it is galaxies, mega galaxies, no one would have believed. And he wouldn't have been able to explain the suffering. He said, my main aim is to explain that this life is suffering, which now Professor Harari is going around the world and saying, he's of Jewish faith. He says the moment you are born, you are suffering. So this is the sort of situation.
You know, when you think about the feelings of suffering or happiness, if you actually accept it as everything happens for a reason, good reason, if you accept it, your feelings like suffering will be actually calm, it will calm down.
Definitely, definitely. Only thing is,
Yeah.
you must not, most people put it down for karma. When something bad happens, they put it down for karma.
Yeah.
It is not karma only.
That's right.
There are 5 things that are explained in Buddhism for things to happen. Karma is only one. Then you get the climatic, the physical world system. Like if you have a drought or tsunami or severe rain or something, that is not karma. It may be that because of your karma, you get swept away in a drought and die. So that is two reasons. And then there is a thing called the bija niyama. That is the genetics. Modern genetics is bija niyama. And if you are born into a human being, you will be a human being like that. Then you get what you call the Dhamma niyama, which is a bit difficult to explain because Dhamma niyama means there are so many things that we nowadays consider miracles, but they can be explained with physical reasons. For example, if I went and told somebody in the last century, when I talk here, somebody in Australia will be seeing me and hearing me, they would have said, go away, you are telling me fairy tales. But it's happening now, isn't it? Now I am speaking and anybody can see me and hear me in Australia.
That's right.
See, that's Dhamma niyama. These physical things that we can't explain, we develop later on with development of mankind. And then the other thing is what you call the law of mental activity, chitta niyama. Buddha says that this mental activity is a separate type of, we can say it as a force. Only thing is that the body, the physical thing, can help to develop this force. They are all bound to each other. Body and the mind are bound to each other. Nama rupa paccaya vijnana. The body and the nervous system and the mind are depending on each other in this world. And he said there are other worlds where there are no body, only the mind can exist. That we don't know. And as this philosopher I told you said that, maybe they are the highly developed people who decided the body is going to fall ill and disappear soon. Therefore, much better to have a mind only. But what they didn't, the people who do what is called the immaterial type of meditation and go into these worlds, didn't realize that however long you live with the mind only, still death cannot be prevented. And you suffer death. So this is what this the modern German philosopher is saying, that the only way man can evolve is to see that it is unsatisfactory to have a body and unsatisfactory to have a changing mind, to find a way to get rid of the mind and the body. So it may be that long before he started talking this, 2500 years ago, Buddha found the way to be happy forever. Trouble is, at the moment, we feel scared or sad that we are going to lose our body because we are attached too much to this body and we are attached too much to our mind. Oh my God, if I'm going to be demented, what is the use of living? Like that, you feel sort of very sad about it. But it is changing. Whether you feel sad or whatever it is, you can't sort of stop the change, impermanence. And therefore what we need to do is to accept things are impermanent and not suffer twice. When you fall ill, don't suffer twice. Once in the body and twice, second time in the mind. When something dies, and don't feel sad forever and ever, because it's the nature of things. The day we were born, in fact, there is a saying to say, the day you are born, you get 2 certificates.
Yes.
One is the birth certificate with the date and time. The other is the death certificate without a date and time. And you can put it yourself if you want, anytime.
But you can't really.
You can.
We don't know.
If you want to commit suicide, you put the date and time.
But that's the thing.
That's-
If you commit suicide, it's not guaranteed that you will die, right? Or you want to die.
No, this is the thing. So, so therefore, being unhappy, we can understand. Even if I have somebody, in fact, one good friend of mine died about 2 months ago, I still feel sad about it. Because I can still imagine him talking, laughing, doing things, and how helpful he was, how good he was. It takes time. It takes time. But the thing is, don't allow the sadness and the sort of what you call the mental effect get hold of you. The best you can do for the departed person is to get out of that sad state and live. I am sure whoever dies will not expect others to follow you. It will be, whoever it is will be very unhappy if he says, oh, so and so died and his wife died from a broken heart. So, like that, accept bad things and good things together. They are changing, and therefore, and don't suffer too much. You suffer twice. For every occasion, you suffer twice. For a bad occasion, you suffer twice. For a happy occasion, you suffer once when the happy thing is gone. So that's the net result is unsatisfactoriness, which is dukkha.
Acceptance is the key then. Acceptance. You accept everything, whatever comes next.
Yeah, there was a song, Ke Sera Sera. What will be, will be. Yeah, but that's not the true thing. You must try to continue with your life and improve your intelligence and your acceptance and your mind and become stronger and stronger till one day we'll be able to escape this cycle. Any other questions? We got 15 minutes more. I could have given that to Bhante Govida.
We would have done more of those exercises, mind and body.
They are supposed to be very good. They are supposed to be very good for your mind and body. Lots of people believe in it.
Yes, actually it is. I have been practicing since his last visit, and it has actually given me some kind of satisfaction from
Mental satisfaction.
Yes, coming when I had kind of overthinking moments,
Yeah.
and then I practiced that gate, para gate, parasam gate, bodhisvaha with the same exercise.
It's-
Actually,
it's good.
eventually I noticed
Yeah,
that.
you know what it does, exercise?
Yes,
It produces what is called endorphins.
yes.
Endorphins go and touch your neurons and make you feel happy.
So should we love our children less?
No, love them very much, but be prepared to leave them at any time. In fact, I am teaching my grandchildren to be independent.
But if I love them more, they will miss me more when I'm gone.
That of course is an individual thing. But you must train them and say, look, I love you very much, but one day I am going away and don't feel sad. In fact, I wrote a poem about my death recently. I said, don't cry when I die. Don't tell people. If any friends come and feel sad, let them be. But there will be others who will come to make sure I am dead. And then I don't need a coffin or a suit. Wrap me up in a piece of cloth, take me to the crematorium, burn me, bring my ashes, and there is a cherry tree in my garden that has never given fruits. Bury my ashes under the cherry tree, and if one day any cherries come, bring it to the temple and give it to Bhante, Silavimala and Bandula. And wherever I go, I'll be living in a very dilapidated home that has been unoccupied. What does that mean? Buddha has sort of said that this life, what we live, is like a dilapidated house, unoccupied by anybody. There is no soul in it. So wherever I go, remember, I'll be living in a dilapidated house waiting for you to come.
And then no
That
one
is-
will come either.
That is a little bit of attraction. I am not enlightened, so I can't help feeling sorry to leave my people. So that is a what you call a metaphor for a rebirth, dilapidated home. So answer is yes, love them, but be prepared to leave them at any time and tell them, when I am gone, remember the good things I did, not the bad things.
And at the same time, as they will grow up, they would understand the situations, won't they? So, in mind, they...
Yeah, children
they
do
will
understand.
grow up, yes.
They don't have to grow up. They don't have to grow up really.
I mean, as time goes by.
Yeah, they'll feel sad
Yes.
and unhappy, but I'm sure they will get over it
Yes, very quickly. Actually.
very quick, not quickly, also slowly.
Yes.
And then you remember,
Yes.
I told you I remember 147 people who died in my life. I can remember each one, how good they are. One night I couldn't sleep, so I counted them one by one.
Oh, my God.
Any other questions you want to ask? What's next? Tea time or?
Someone's hands up.
Yeah, yes.
You know, a lot of people are worried about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So I've got this little theory that it's not really a big deal.
Yeah,
It's just that people are going to be creating technology that's so sophisticated that it will get to the point where a person like one of us who dies will then be reborn into a robot's body.
yeah, that is one way of evolution that is being sort of.
Can you repeat that question for the people online?
Yes, what she's asking is about artificial intelligence, and that we might evolve to be born as a robot, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Now, I am not a very good expert in artificial intelligence, though I read the Scientific American or whatever it is every day and read about it. And I'll tell you one thing. There are something like so many billions or trillions of neurons in our brain, right? And they have so many, each one has so many connections with others. And all our thoughts, everything is controlled by these circuits, run by electric changes. And even if you are able to make a robot with trillion bits or whatever it is, they say they will never be able to get what is called the hedonic tone, which means, now, for example, I see very often this happens to me. I go and say, look, that's a very nice pink color. And my wife will say, that's not pink. And she sees it different. How can you make a robot do that? I have my doubts whether it can be done. And similarly, sometimes what I say things as a joke will make you laugh. Somebody will say, what a silly joke. He thinks that he can laugh people. It's different. For each person has different type of feeling. That's why the famous Mona Lisa. You know, everybody says different things. It's a smile, she's pregnant, this, that. There is no end to this about Mona Lisa picture. Like that, how can artificial intelligence make? Because it has to be fed all these things, isn't it? How are you going to feed those change things? You can feed information, rough information you can feed. You can feed, if you see somebody with 2 legs and 2 arms and a head killing. You can feed that and it will go and killing everything with the 2 arms, 2 legs and head. But it will never be able to say, this fellow is a very little child, I feel sorry, I can't kill him. Can the artificial intelligence say that? No, I don't think it can. And it's a dangerous thing that these people are trying. It's like trying to sort of grow human organs and things. Because if you are in the wrong hand, if it is in the wrong hand, that knowledge will cause the destruction of the mankind. Similarly, like the nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence is also, I personally feel, is an accident waiting to happen. This is what this person, the German philosopher said, that humankind is going for destruction. And before that, they'll have to evolve to find a way to escape. And very unlikely that you can take so many billion people in spacecraft into another world. Very likely Donald Trump and somebody might go in a simple spacecraft, but not us. So he's very good in that, his description. He said humankind is heading for destruction. Before that, we must evolve. Artificial intelligence is not the road.
Or maybe we create a super intelligence which has got ultimate compassion that will save us.
That's what Buddha did.
So you could do the same thing for a super intelligence.
Yeah, this enlightenment is super intelligence. Try to do the path and get cracking with meditation. Yes. No. No, it can't be like the computers. It can have its own virus. That is for Mahayana people. Amitabha Buddha say you don't have to practice. Amitabha Buddha will take you to what's called Sukhavati, where you have to still practice to become enlightened. If you keep on saying the name of Amitabha Buddha, that's a Mahayana thing. And at the time of death, if you remember Amitabha Buddha, he will take you to a planet called Sukhavati, where you still have, there are so many millions of what are called bodhisattvas waiting there to be enlightened. Sukhavati, that is the Suddhavasa in Pali. People are waiting to be enlightened. So by praying you can't. I know, you are thinking almost time for tea. Let's finish this talk, and thank you very much for listening. I am sure you will sort of think about this. Okay?
चक्रवडङ्कितरत्नसुपादो लक्खनमण्डित आयतपाणि चामरछत्र विभूषित पादो ईसहि तुई है पिता नारसिंहो सक्के कुमार वारो सुखुमालो लक्खन विथत पुण्य शरीरो लोकहिताय गातो नारवीरो ईसहि तुई है पिता नारसिंहो पुण्य सशंख निभो मुख वन्नो देव नारायण पियो नारनागो मत्त गजिन